fourth official episode of Blood on the Mic.
Yes, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about Ariel Pink, this enigmatic indie artist.
Right, I'm sure some of you guys have probably heard of Ariel Pink, especially if you clicked on this link. But
he does have like a bit of a rabid fan base, like a cult, like a strong cult following.
Yeah, I will say a cult is probably like the way to describe it. But Ariel Pink, to kind of describe it a little bit, Ariel Pink's been around for a while. I think he just turned 41, or he is going to turn 42, actually, around the time that we released this podcast. And also, happy birthday, Ariel. But Ariel Pink, in recent years, especially this past decade, his albums have gotten a lot of traction. They're not always the most popular albums. He's no Tame Impala or anything of that sort. But he's definitely influenced a lot of the sound of indie music during the last 10 years.
Yeah, definitely.
And we will definitely come back to talk about some of those releases since 2010. But that's not what we're here to do. Because most people, they might know Ariel Pink, or they might have heard of him from the past few years. But little do they know that Ariel Pink had a first stage of his career very early on in the 2000s. He actually, in the late 90s, early 2000s, he recorded a bunch of music. And it only became known to the world in the mid 2000s when Animal Collective's record label released
and like it. When was it that he started releasing his studio stuff, like 2010?
His 2010 is when he started releasing his studio albums with 4AD. I don't say 4AD, but you know.
Yeah, I always thought it was 4AD. You keep saying 4AD.
I keep saying 4AD because the way the label was kind of set up, it was originally called 1980 Forward.
Okay.
So in like 1980, and then the word forward, but then 1984 they changed it to 1980 Forward, like 1984, and then
they had forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they eventually dropped the 1980 part, and then they just kept it as
4AD.
Forward. Like, it's supposed to be, it comes from the word forward, so that's why I still say 4AD when I say it. But, it's
4AD one of
4AD is the way that most people say it.
Is that one of the record labels that you did your, like, radio show on?
Yeah, so, once again, I'll tell you guys, I've had this radio show on WMBR here, MIT's radio station here in Cambridge, Boston. But I've had some episodes where I cover record labels as an entire show, and one of those shows was 4AD or 4AD.
Nobody else calls it 4AD. It's just 4AD.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I'm surprised that they're still going, because
they've had some big artists recently.
I mean, their golden years were the 1980s. That's when their legendary releases came out. But
they've had some big indie artists, like sure. Ariel Pink was big. I know St. Vincent's on 4AD. I can't name some other ones off the top of my head.
I think Grimes is also on 4AD.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and they've especially this past decade, they've had a little bit of rising up again. The 4AD will rise again. But
this is topic for another episode.
Yeah.
So Ariel Pink.
This is kind of like our banter over here. Yeah. Lucy's a little bit upset because last night we were recording we're recording our last new music segment, and we were up until, when time did you go to sleep? Like 1:30 in the morning.
1:30, but this is.
But he's a working man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because one of us is unemployed and it's not me. So I actually have to wake up early in the morning, and this guy doesn't care.
I think I still earn more money than you being unemployed.
That's beside the point. Honestly, look, Massachusetts. I just moved here from Florida, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yep. Massachusetts is a paradise. If you don't live here, please move here. They give you free health care. Their unemployment benefits are great. They actually treat you like a human being, unlike other states. If
you do care about those things, then yeah. Some people complain though about the amount of regulations that we have.
They do have, on the first day I came here, I went to fill up gas at 9 p.m. and the pump was closed because apparently it was too late, and I guess Cambridge has a regulation that gas pumps can't be open.
It's in Massachusetts, yeah. I don't know what it is. I haven't read into it a lot, but Yeah,
This
we're
is where
originally all from.
my
We're both originally from Florida, where the
Yeah.
gas stations are like the lifeline
everywhere
of
else
the
in
community.
America, the gas stations are open 24/7. At least the gas pumps. Like the
It-
store might be closed, but the pumps are open.
I wonder. Leave us a message if you are
If you're from somewhere other than Florida
your
or
state,
Massachusetts.
yeah, if your state has a different law regarding the time schedule for pumps.
But let's get back
Yeah,
on track.
back to Ariel Pink.
Ariel Pink.
Let's start with let's do a little biography from his beginnings. Ariel Marcus Rosenberg, as he is legally known. What do you?
So Ariel
Yeah.
Marcus Rosenberg, he's a LA native. Yeah, he spent basically his entire life there.
He's
I think he
never left
still
LA.
lives there. And interesting fact about him, apparently his first language was Spanish. His
Yeah.
father was from Mexico, and his mother,
He's from New Orleans.
yeah.
I don't know how she learned Spanish. Maybe she also just knew Spanish. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe just his dad spoke a lot of Spanish around the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
He might have did it on purpose, trying to get him to learn Spanish.
Yeah,
But-
I don't know. But I mean, his dad is he was a Harvard-educated gastroenterologist.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a little bit of our Boston connection today. You know.
Yeah, he went to Harvard.
We keep wanting to make this show a little bit more Boston-centric, but
That should be a segment on every episode. The Boston Connection.
The Boston Connection.
Like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. It's,
yeah.
This is like, where's the Boston Connection with this band?
Ariel Pink's father studied at Harvard, which is
It's like
Boston,
1 degree of separation. That's
yeah,
good.
it's really actually pretty close, yeah. But he himself is from Los Angeles. He has never left Los Angeles. Maybe he visited. When he tours, he leaves Los Angeles. But, you know, but he grew up over there, and he talks about how when he was growing up in like 80s and 90s, he was listening to like all these metal bands, Metallica, Anthrax, but also Def Leppard.
Yeah, it's interesting when you listen to his music. You wouldn't think. I mean, there's a couple songs that have like maybe some hard riffs or whatever, but you wouldn't think that like hair metal from the 80s would be a big influence on him.
Yeah, that is kind of true. But the other stuff he also listened to was like Michael Jackson and like
Yeah.
The Cure and Bauhaus and those influences. Oh, and apparently Lou Reed was another one. And so those influences definitely do come through. in
Well,
his music.
apparently, I was reading on him. Apparently, for a while, he was growing up and he was just listening to like those metal bands, like Metallica, Anthrax, Def Leppard, and stuff. But then when he discovered The Cure, he kind of dropped all that shit and he's like, "I'm goth now, and this
Yeah.
is the only thing that matters."
Yeah.
Which,
And apparently over here, it seems he said in an interview once that once grunge and alternative rock came out in the 90s, he pretty much said that that's when music ended to him, and that's apparent in his music as well.
does that mean like that's the last good music, or that's the death of music? Like,
I think he kind of was saying that was like the last music that he enjoyed. Like Nirvana was the last band that he enjoyed.
that makes sense if you listen to it.
Yeah, it definitely does make sense. But
So-
he basically what we're trying to say is that he grew up picking up all these different musical influences in his life.
And he was recording music from a very young age. He had like a 4-track recorder when he was a kid, and he said he used to record songs with a bass, and that's it. Like he had a bass guitar and amp, and he would like do drums on his legs or with pots and pans or whatever, and record little songs when he was a kid.
He's a true August Rush. You ever see that movie? August
No,
Rush? It's about a kid playing a guitar, and apparently he's supposed to be a
genius.
musical genius because he slaps his guitar as he's playing.
It's
guitar.
never been done
I don't know.
before.
I don't know. I think he was playing also Beatles songs in the. It's been a long time since that movie came out, but
But yeah, and apparently his parents, at least according to him, his parents never really saw a musical talent in him. They told him to pursue visual arts, painting and drawing and stuff. So when he was, when he graduated high school, he went to like an art school, and that's what he was doing. That's the kind of school he went to. The
he went
college
to Cal Arts, which is the California Institute of Arts.
But this is when you enter his like early recordings phase, which would be from about 1996 to 2003. That 8-year period, he was just recording music like a madman, just nonstop. He had a crazy work ethic where he would just go home, record music for nobody. Like he would make these tapes and just give it to like his friends and family. I don't know if he specifically like ever thought that he would make a living off of music or anything, or if he ever tried to give them the labels, but he was just making these home recordings and giving it to his friends to listen to.
Yeah, he wasn't really making music for. I don't know if he ever really pictured himself as a musician, like at least a professional musician. But he was just making all this music. That was like his artistic outlet, and all the time that he was in Cal Arts, where he was studying, he was making all this music, recording it, blah blah blah, and well, that's when like he started this project called the Haunted Graffiti, and he would ultimately release eight. He would make eight recordings with the project named Haunted Graffiti, in that time period from roughly late '90s to
Yeah,
2003.
and this is going to be a two-part episode. So this first part is going to focus on his early recordings, like his own early home
His Haunted
recordings
Graffiti home
from
recordings. Yeah.
the ones that he recorded from 1996 to 2003. Then the next episode is going to talk about his studio output from like
Yeah.
2010 to I think the last one was like 2017.
Yeah, and I think this makes sense too because there was such a big gap in when he and such a different mentality change. This is like just a completely different approach in terms of how he was making music from this early phase to later on. Um, and yeah, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about what was happening in those years as we talk about the albums. So let's just get into the first album. This is while he was still in the middle of his scholastic phase. He
Yeah.
he went into he released a recording called Underground, or at least today we know it as Underground. I don't know what it was originally called, but originally this release was actually not even. It wasn't even very long. It was actually more like a dozen tracks or so. Let me pull up the original track listing when it was first released.
Yeah, because a lot of these are kind of hard to tell. Again, look, if you're an Ariel Pink purist, we might be like seeming a little sloppy to you, but we're kind of just gonna talk about what's available,
Right.
like what's easily available to listen
he
to.
Had a lot of recordings that he has released, or maybe not even released. A lot of it is also bootleg copies, and there was the original track listing that he would have for these albums, and then the track listing that we're going to be talking about today is the most recent
Yeah.
track listing release. So something maybe I should mention is that in the past several years, actually just the last year and this year really, Ariel Pink has been releasing not only remastered versions of his old albums, which we'll talk about later, but he's also been officially releasing some of these Haunted Graffiti albums that hadn't actually seen the light.
Yeah,
for a while.
because so I don't think we really mentioned that. Like, so these were recorded between 1996 and 2003, but none of these albums were released until like the mid 2000s when Animal Collective heard it and they wanted to release his albums, and they originally only released I think 3 of them.
Yeah. So the whole story was that Ariel, he would go to concerts of people that he liked, and then he would hand out the cassettes. This was all in cassettes, and like he would just hand out cassettes of music to music musicians that he liked, and he didn't even actually know that Animal Collective was that big because I guess at that time they weren't. But he handed them a tape, and they listened to it on the tour bus on their way to the next show, and they fell in love with it. They seeked him out and they contacted him and they said, "Hey, we have a record label called Paw Tracks," and Ariel, that was not his intention at all, but he was just like, "Yeah, let's whatever, like let's release my music," and so that's when people found out about Ariel Pink. He had like a very small but cult following in those years because there were 3 albums that got released with Paw Tracks. But those 3 had been the only releases
Yeah, and it was
officially for a while.
it was Doldrums was the first one, and then I think was it House Arrest and
House Arrest and Worn Copy. I don't know what the order it came out, but I think those
so yeah,
was the
those
first one released.
originally until pretty recently, those were the only 3 of his home recordings, like his early recordings that were easily available.
They're easily available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you could, I guess before that they probably had like
Yeah, you could go
cassette or
like,
CDR copies or something
yeah,
floating around.
peer-to-peer sharing and all that stuff. So there were definitely ways to listen. There are still definitely ways to listen to a broader range of his his releases, but we're only going to focus on stuff that is officially released because otherwise this can be a little overwhelming. So originally the album Underground only had about 12 songs on it, but the version that's been out more recently has 22 songs on it.
I'm
So
checking
it's
what version I listened to then, because I don't remember it having 22 songs on it. Let me see.
it probably did still. They
Oh, it did.
yeah
Okay, I didn't even realize.
yeah, and I mean this version, this release was this method of releasing it was released last year. All right, so this album, um, all right, Lucy, what were your thoughts on this album?
So, I mean, this may sound like I get maybe a stupid critique because all these albums are like lo-fi and not very well recorded, but this probably has like I guess the worst production value of all of them. It
The
sounds
worst. Yeah.
yeah, it's very clearly his first album like and I guess he was recording music before this and I don't know like how much music he recorded before this or any of that, but like the songs on here aren't as unique and interesting as they would later come to be. Like,
Right. Most of these songs kind of sound like some sort of like, kind of sound like part of the wave of the post-punk revival that was going on. Maybe garage rock revival. Maybe it's
yeah,
a better word for it.
that's what the garage rock like it kind of has that garage rock sound
Yeah.
that
And
yeah, and this was recording in like 1996, right? So that like
it was
early
actually
2000.
1996 to 1999 is when this was. This is
So,
like
yeah.
a collection of like his
So
early
that was like a
recordings.
little bit before like the early 2000s
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
post-punk
this is
revival
before
thing.
the Strokes broke out. And actually, he did mention that, we talked about how in the 90s he didn't like a lot of the alternative rock bands, but he said that he really liked the Strokes and White
Oh,
Stripes.
really? What I read
Yeah.
was that he because for a long time he wasn't hearing like really guitars on the radio, and then like the Strokes and the White Stripes came out, and he's like, oh, these are like guitar bands on the radio. He still didn't like them, but he's like, oh, they're coming back. Like
Yeah,
that's what I read.
I think he liked some stuff. Like I think maybe he liked the direction that was happening. I don't know. He
I
probably
could
saw
see him
excitement
not
again.
liking the White Stripes.
You think so? I don't know.
I don't think he would
I don't
like
know.
the White Stripes.
If we ever get Ariel Pink on an interview,
Ariel
we'll let you
Pink,
know.
please come on and tell me if you like the White Stripes.
It would be nice.
I love the White Stripes.
I'm still holding out for some interview, but whatever. So I
You
mean,
get
yeah,
an Ariel
this is-
Pink interview, that'd be great.
It would be pretty cool. But yeah, most of these songs are demos. And actually, the first time I listened to it, I kind of just like wrote off the album altogether.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, I was just like, this is like, like I just thought the album was non-essential. It's like, okay, these are some early recordings. They sound like demos. They sound like not very interesting. But I did
Yeah.
find a few highlights for me.
Yep. Okay, what were yours?
My Molly. I
My
thought
Molly was like-
the
yeah, that
opening
was
track,
my-
I think, right?
Yeah, it wasn't actually even originally in the album, but it was one of those early songs, and
Yeah.
it got lumped in as the opening track on here. Yeah.
Jack Off. I liked a lot.
I did like Jack Off. Yeah.
Those are the two like standouts to me. The rest, I like Rock Play. Tractor Man was like it was fun, but like I don't know. A lot of these songs are like too sloppy for me. Like they might have interesting ideas, but they're not executed very well.
Yeah, there were actually a lot of like if you listen to each track individually and like you focus on it, you could find like some hint of gold in them. Like a lot of his seeds of like silliness are coming out in some of these songs, but overall it just sounds too rough. Like there's a song called like "Don't Turn Back" / 2008.
Yeah.
That I think actually sounds like a pretty good song, but it's just buried in
Yeah.
so much like static and like just fuzz that like it doesn't come out through. And I mean the fact that this is just constant all the way through, it is really damaging to the album. Like over here I wrote down, I made sure to write it down how I felt. Listening to this whole thing is torture. Is what I wrote down.
I wouldn't feel that strongly about Underground. I actually kind of feel more that way towards the Doldrums.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to the doldrums in a second, but I mean, Underground. I don't know. Maybe there's not so much to say about Underground.
It's not for me. Torture is too strong for me. Listening to this all the way through is just like, oh, did that thing just play? Like it's just like sounds like background music after a while. Everything kind of just blends together and it comes.
Yeah.
Nothing stands
I mean,
out after
if
a
you're
while.
just casually listening to it, you can do it. But like last night when I was going over these albums again, I was focusing on this album, and it was just like, God, it just felt like somebody was like tapping my brain, and I'm like, stop! Like I just wanted to stop the music.
This
and,
was
like,
a strange experience for both of us, where listening to these albums, a lot of times you just listen to it and then just like not remember any of it. I don't know, like, and I don't know if that's just like the lo-fi quality of it, but like I had a hard time retaining a lot of these songs like
It
after I
is
listened to.
difficult to retain some of it because like yeah, they're not. If it's too lo-fi, it's not as memorable. Really, it doesn't stick out as much. It just
Because you can't hear the instrumentation as clear. You can't hear the song as clearly, so it's
right.
like it won't stick out.
Yeah. So I mean that's the definitely as we go through, I'll like talk a little bit about the balance between the lo-fi and the. At some point, he starts getting
Yeah, better at it.
yeah. All right. We're gonna talk about the next album now. This next one is called The Doldrums, and The Doldrums was an album that he also made while he was in CalArts. He released it as his senior project, and while everybody else was displaying, whatever art they were having, he put together a little merchandise table to sell or give away. I don't know what he was doing.
Oh yeah, it was.
But he was basically giving people copies of the Doldrums at California Arts.
Well, but apparently that booth was the art piece. So like
yeah.
it was because when he went to Arts, he didn't like the technique because he just wanted to. I guess he was all about the purity of the art, man.
Right.
But he said that like Cal Arts is focused more on the art business and like how to become a successful artist and how to sell your work or whatever. So he was like super against that. So I guess he made like a booth selling art as like some kind of
Oh yeah, it's like a statement or
like
something.
a statement. I don't know what the statement was, but he did. What was that art piece? Do you remember that art piece that he made that was like the entire faculty, like in an orgy?
Oh yeah. He did like I was reading it. Yeah, we were reading about that together. Yeah, he was it a painting or like
I don't know.
I forget. Yeah, but it was an it was an art exhibit that had
That
a bunch of like
depicted
the faculty
yeah.
and students in CalArts engaging in an orgy together.
And
there was one faculty member who sued.
Yeah, and lost.
Yeah, well because it's
He sued for
free speech.
sexual harassment.
Yeah, but that's also painting a picture of Ariel Pink that's definitely in keeping with his
His attitude.
yeah.
Towards
Ariel Pink
people.
has been called the most hated man in indie, but it's just because he speaks his mind and he doesn't
He's
mince
also
words.
annoying, I guess.
He can be annoying and also a little creepy at times with his lyrics, but
Oh yeah, the lyrics on some of these things are
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, interesting. But I don't think this early on, I don't think he's really explored those lyrics quite as
No,
deeply.
no.
All right, so the Doldrums. The Doldrums, it is to me a massive improvement on Underground. The recording quality is much
yeah.
better. The mixing of the instrumentation is
I
much
would
better.
yeah, I would agree that he really stepped it up on all fronts as far as like the recording, even his songwriting and like the instrumentation. Even like there's more synthesizers and stuff like that on this album. He's playing with different sounds on a lot of these songs and different vibes. But the one big problem I have with this album is that it's like too sad. It's such a downer album. The whole and it's over an hour long. It's like an hour long, and it's just so sad the entire time. Like the vibe is just so down.
Well, the original album only had like 10 songs, but yeah, I mean, it's the release that we have nowadays is those 10 songs plus other songs from that same time period, and but yeah, they all kind of follow in that same same mood of like it's definitely more mellow, more laid back in a sense. It's not as energetic as some of his other albums will come to.
Yeah, and like I don't.
I guess sad is one way to say it. I don't know.
I mean, they sounded sad to me. They sounded like downer songs because like the things that I liked about Underground were his playfulness and the upbeat songs and like the things like that. Like even though the songwriting wasn't as strong, it was more entertaining maybe.
Yeah.
And this
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, okay. I could see more entertaining. Yeah, but I don't know. To me, the Doldrums is really when he. To me, like Underground is just like, a garage rock revival album, a demo album. I just basically write it off. Like if it wasn't Ariel Pink making it, I wouldn't care about it.
yeah.
But over here, the Doldrums is to me is the one where like an Ariel Pink sound starts to come out.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I agree. Like this is this is definitely more essential than Underground was.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely more essential. I mean, his melodies have gotten better. He's got more complicated, more complex song structures.
yeah,
He doesn't just have his guitar and bass. He's using MIDI keyboards and stuff to record. So he has like these little synthy kind of sounds to it, and string arrangements that he kind of joins in. And I mean, if I had to tag down a sound for this, it has a lot of like dream pop elements to it.
yeah.
And this is something that we'll see as we go through his albums. He kind of has a sound that he starts off with, and then with every new release, he kind of adds in more
Yeah.
influences to his palette. But this album is pretty uniform in the sense that they're all a lot of these songs have the same kind of
Yeah,
like,
and I
feel
think,
to it.
and that's kind of like, that's really the biggest downside to this album to me, is that it doesn't have that varied sound that his other albums would have. That, like, he's experimented in his other albums later on, he would experiment with a lot of different genres and a lot of different sounds. This kind of has, like, kind of one sound that he's doing, and after a while, for me, it just gets a little bit, like, too much. Especially, like, he has an 11-minute long song on this.
Oh, which one was it?
The Ballad of, what is it? The Ballad of Bobby Pin?
The Ballad of Bobby Pin. Yeah, I didn't think that wasn't too bad.
It was
at least I
bad.
didn't think so.
It's too bad. It's too long.
It's not my favorite for sure.
He has
but
a couple of songs. It seems like each one of his albums has a song that's at least like 10 minutes long or like
Yeah.
9 minutes long or whatever.
at least with these early releases,
None of them
yeah.
are good. I mean, I think with the exception of maybe the one on Worn Copy, Trepanated Earth, I like that one, but I don't think I like any of the other ones that are super long.
I would say that also we have like I think both you and I have a strong like distaste for long tracks like that.
Yeah, like, unless it's like Pink Floyd on Animals, even though you hate that album.
I-
But like,
It's we're not. This is not a Pink Floyd episode. I have my thoughts about animals, but yeah, no, I would agree that the all of these albums would do better without having these extended.
but especially
10-minute
for an
tracks.
artist like Ariel Pink, you don't need to make a 10-minute long song. Like,
No.
Ariel Pink works best in the short song
His-
where he's experimenting with like a genre and putting a spin on like a 60s garage, like a 60s rock style song, or like a dream pop type song or whatever. Like, we don't need an 11-minute odyssey from Ariel Pink, I don't think, at least.
Yeah, a lot of his songs, what they really stand on are catchy melodies, and it's kind of hard to spend 10 minutes on that, because like these 10-minute songs sometimes they go into like experimenting or like having these extended instrumentals, but at the end of the day, because these are recorded on like 8-track players and stuff
Yeah.
like that, the sound of those instruments don't always come across very well. And actually, I'll mention over here that a lot of these albums, the copies that were released originally, they were not taken from the masters. He would just like burn copies of copies, and so he gave a burned cassette to Animal Collective, and then Animal Collective had to then pass that to digital. And back in 2005, that kind of technology going from cassette deck to digital was
So
shit.
yeah,
So like a lot of sounds were lost in the original releases.
the release that was originally like mass produced to a certain extent to the masses was the master was from a copy of a copy of a copy. So like the audio quality of that was even though it was already lo-fi, but it was like a lo-fi version of a lo-fi recording.
It was like super lo-fi, and I mean those were the versions that really got attention. But in that sense, I can kind of understand more or less something that was going on when they did all that copying. A lot of what got lost was the bass and the drumming. Mm-hmm. So like compare some of the remastered versions to the original versions, and it's actually really apparent in some songs, but on the dual drums specifically, because a lot of these songs they highlight mostly like strings like violin and stuff, like like that's more of an upper register, and also he has a lot of falsetto in a lot of these songs. A lot of those sounds were still able to carry through, and it actually, when you take off a lot of the bass and the drums, it kind of sounds. The original versions sound a lot more ghostly in a sense, a lot less similar to the Ariel Pink that we kind of know of. It's a very different sound. But when you listen to this remastered version, the songs still hold in quality, the ones that are really good, but the songs that I think were not that I didn't like as much on the original release, like I thought, for instance, Bobby Pin was one of the ones that benefited a lot from adding the bass and the drums back into it.
Mm-hmm.
But that I mean that's just kind of like a an audio perspective on these
Yeah.
remasters are definitely the way to go. If you're gonna listen to Ariel Pink's early recordings, search out the remastered versions.
And those are the ones that are like readily available on streaming sites. So like getting the remaster is pretty easy. So, but what songs on here were highlights for you?
Oh, actually, for me, like several ones. Um, They were only a few songs that I didn't like just because they felt too burned, like in terms of recording quality, and they were both not actually part of the original album, like Theme from Unreleased Clara's Gardens and Until the Night Dies. Those were both like quote unquote extra tracks that were added to the album.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that I really liked were actually the one that I liked the most was Let's Build a Campfire There.
I love that one.
That one
That's the song.
that one's great.
That's one of the only songs on here that I like love 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it also maybe is fitting because it wasn't part of the original um, release, so it was one of those like added on tracks. So it doesn't have the same vibe as like the rest of the album, but it is really it's just really good. I really like that one. But the other ones that I really liked are For Kate I Wait and Among Dreams. Those two
Yeah.
were two really big highlights for me.
What did you think of the first song, "Good Kids Make Bad Grown-Ups"? Because I hated that song so much.
I
Like,
I thought that it could have been better. I think he had too much. The way he sang it was a little odd.
that's what. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the song kind of drags on, and the way he sings is just like, it's like he's just whining. Like his voice is just so whiny, and he's like whining about growing up, basically. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I didn't hate the song. I yeah, no, I definitely didn't hate the song. The Good Kids Make Bad Grown Ups. I just think that he could have maybe done a few different choices in terms of how he performed it. Especially because it doesn't always come across with the recording qualities that he has. But yeah, that song I thought was okay. Whatever.
Oh, the Doldrums was another song on here that I thought was really good. The title track.
Oh, really?
I really
didn't-
like the
I didn't think that
Doldrums.
was like. I didn't think that one was particularly special, but I don't know.
I don't know. I like the vibe on it a lot. I think it had a really good like, and it had this. It carried the vibe of the album. Like that song, kind of like is emblematic of what the album sounds like. But I think it carried that vibe really well, and like it was kind of for me at least, like a shining moment of like that vibe, that like kind of like relaxed, kind of sad, dream poppy vibe that he was doing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know. I thought I really liked a lot of the songs on here. Honestly, yeah, yeah. I don't know what else to say about it. It was the easiest one for me to get into. Honestly, I can tell you some
Not
of the
for
other songs
me.
that I liked as well, but we're just beating a dead horse, I think. But, yeah. All right. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. This next one is a little confusing in terms of not like everything that we've been talking about has been a little confusing, but this next two releases were called Fast Forward and Scare Famous. I forget which one of the two came first, but in the end of the day, it doesn't matter because either they haven't been or they never will be released as separate records officially. The version that everybody's most familiar with is the combined version of Scare Famous that has songs from both of those releases, and that's the one that's the one that most people know because it starts with the song Go Acapulco is the first song on there. So if, it's 17 tracks.
So yeah, this one's basically a compilation of
It's a compilation of those two albums. Yeah.
of Scared Famous and Fast Forward.
You could just I'm assuming the best songs, but who knows? I don't know how they decided. Actually, something that I did notice is that some of the songs on Fast Forward dropped into some of the other releases as the extra tracks or whatever. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, but not all of them. But anyways, we're just going off of what was released. And Scare Famous is also the only one that hasn't had one of these remastered re-releases yet.
Mm-hmm.
So any day now, really, sometime this year, Ariel Pink is gonna release the remastered version of that album. And I'm actually looking forward to it because my biggest complaint about it is that a lot of these songs sound way too saturated and like basically just blown the fuck out. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of like saturated like sounds. It's just that's what it sounds like. It just sounds like every time it gets too loud, there's like clipping going on, and it also sounds distorted and warped, like it's been sitting out in the sun a little bit too long, like the which I don't think was the original intent, not to the degree that some of these songs have it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like for this, I mean, I guess Doldrums was the turning point for you where he started to really get good. For
Yeah.
me, it was actually this album.
Okay.
Because this is when his songwriting starts to get more fun, I think. Like,
Yeah,
a
well,
lot
that's
more
definitely true, yeah.
playful, more fun. And, like, these are songs that, like, I actually wanted to listen to again. Like, I have Girl in a Tree, I really liked.
I really like that one too. Yeah.
That's a great song to me. Look After My Boys.
Are you gonna look after my boys?
I love that,
That
song.
song. That song is great.
That's so good.
Yeah, that song
And,
is
like,
great. Yeah.
Those are the kind of songs that I love from Ariel Pink. It's just like the kind of playful, stupid at parts, just like goofy, silly, but like still really good, catchy songs. Like catchy melodies, catchy songs.
Yeah, those two songs I think are pretty good highlights. There's definitely some other ones that I also liked. Howling at the Moon.
Yeah,
And I mentioned before Acapulco is another one that I like. And even though Acapulco is not even like, it's like borderline racist, but he's also Mexican, so I can't even like complain because like that's his ethnicity. Like I don't know,
and he also grew up in L.A., so
yeah, he also did grow up in LA, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely a white passing person because I mean,
yeah, he's white.
his last name is Rosenberg. That's the other thing. But yeah, there were several songs on here that I enjoyed. Politely Declined, Scare Famous, Baby Comes Around. But overall, like yeah, I mean like this album, I'm like really looking forward to see if they remaster it when they release it again. Because if they are able to get like a slightly more clean sound out of it from the original tapes, that I think the album would be greatly improved by it. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Like the
Yeah, because to me, like that was my main downside too. Was like that the recording quality of it. For a lot of these songs, I wish there was this was like a studio album. Honestly, like if this was like a clean production.
Well, he's done that actually with some of it. Like every now and then he will go back and like reach out for a song that he maybe never released or something like that, and then he'll re-record it with his professional.
Well, that'd be
studio.
cool if he did that with this entire album. Like, what's his name did that? Car Seat Headrest.
Car Seat Headrest, yeah.
With Twin Fantasy.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
But
some-
yeah, but this was the turning point for me where I'm like, okay, Ariel Pink is start, and I listened to these albums in order. I know I don't think you really listened to them in order.
I did initially.
Okay. Because I like to listen to everything in order, like chronologically. So I did Underground Indulgence, and I'm like, oh, am I gonna hate Ariel Pink? And then like Scared Famous came on, and I'm like, okay, this is now starting to get more interest. Like this is starting to hook me now.
It definitely sounds more fun. That's when he like officially became fun, I guess, in his recordings. But in this over here, to kind of pinpoint the musical palettes that he's adding, he really adds a lot of 70s grooves to it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bubblegum, some disco in there as well. Glam rock makes some appearances as well. And even a little bit of country in one of the songs. I don't know. He's definitely adding in some these sounds that are not normally looked very highly upon. They're This is when he is kind of his whole thesis kind of comes together, where a lot of people are saying that his music sounds like radio from your youth playing in the room next door. It's like almost like your subconscious from like riding in the car with your parents is kind of like coming into you.
Yeah, and it's like nostalgia for like pop music from the past, but you're not even sure like what specifically he's
Right.
pulling from. But it's kind of just like all pop music from the 60s through like the 90s.
Yeah, it's not always very clear what he's trying to go for or like who his influences are. And I think that's probably when the best Ariel Pink comes out is when it's not very obvious like what he's pulling from in his songs.
And didn't he spawn a genre? What was it? Hypnagogic pop?
Yeah, hypnagogic pop is like basically what I described. Yeah, that like like a collage of all these different sounds from the past, but it is through like a very lo-fi.
And yeah, through a lo-fi lens. And it's funny when we were researching Ariel Pink, like that term came up, hypnagogic pop, as like a genre, and then you look up the term on Wikipedia, and the only person it references is Ariel Pink.
Yeah,
so I'm like, who are the other hypnagogic pop artists?
I'm sure there's a few. So I think I also read the name James Ferraro. I think is another person, but
if a genre only has like 2 or 3 people who are working in it, it might not be its own genre.
I think there probably are people, but they're probably very, very unknown. It's not a genre that's definitely hasn't picked up the same kind of steam. Maybe in this past decade, it influenced a lot of artists. We were talking before about like people like Drug Dealer and even people like Mac DeMarco has taken some of the influences. But I mean, we can also talk about that more in the second episode. When the influences become a lot more obvious.
Well, do you think the people influenced by Ariel Pink, did that come more from his early recordings that were released in the mid 2000s or studio stuff released like in the 2010s?
I think his early stuff, the stuff that we're covering today, mostly influenced very indie bands. Like, I bet you that Animal Collective was in part influenced by it, because Animal Collective embraced more of a Beach Boys, Brian Wilson kind of sound. Coincidentally, around the same time that Ariel Pink was picked up by them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Ariel Pink has some of those moments where he sounds like the Beach Boys, and it's just a few moments every now and then.
Yeah.
But I would imagine like a lot of those like 2000s bands were probably more influenced than like the bands that I'm referring to, like the ones that came out from like the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I think they were mostly influenced by his 2010 album. That's when he like really blew up in the indie world. But yeah.
Okay, you have anything else to say about this one?
No, just like some songs I don't like, but it's not worth talking about. It's
Are there any songs on here that were like egregious to you?
no. I mean, like An Appeal from Heaven and Inmates of Heartache are.
I love An Appeal from Heaven. I swear, like I guess you just don't like these like spare songs because
I don't like the spare songs because not because they're spare, but because it's so lo-fi that it.
That like added stuff for me because like
Really?
it was just
No,
like
for me it took away.
I don't know because specifically for that mood because it was just like him and an organ playing, and like his singing was actually on that. I don't know, it just sounded emotional to me, and like that song worked for me.
Okay.
An Appeal from Heaven, and it also as like a last song, like as a closing song. I think it was a great closing song for the album.
Yeah, probably as a closing song I can see it. I don't know. I just kind of wish maybe like with the remasters I like that one more. But it's not that I don't like the song itself. I just didn't like the mix, like
the recording of it.
The recording of it. Not to say that I don't appreciate the lo-fi qualities. It's just like when it's too lo-fi, there's certainly a limit for me. All right, this next album is a pretty big album in his release history. Alongside with the Doldrums, House Arrest is usually cited as his high points.
Yeah,
in here.
And a little bit about his history because this is an interesting thing. So the Doldrums, Underground, the Doldrums, and I'm pretty sure Scared Famous were all recorded like while he was in college, like around that time. But after he graduated college, well, I think he dropped out. I don't know. After he was done with college, there was a point in his life where he was living in an ashram, which is like a
hippie commune.
Basically like a commune.
But like it has like religious undertones to it, right?
On Wikipedia, it said he lived in an ashram, and an ashram is like kind of like a temple kind of thing for like monks.
Yeah.
But when I read what he was doing, he was kind of just doing a bunch of drugs and just sleeping there. So I'm not sure if that's really like monk-like behavior. But so yeah, he was living in this like basically a hippie commune and working at a record store.
I like to think he was like part of like the Hare Krishna or something like that.
That would be great. But
making beans and rice and selling it on college campuses.
but yeah, basically during this time period, he was the only thing he was doing is just doing drugs, hanging out with monks, I guess, and listening to stuff at a record store.
He was working at a record store. I've always thought that like I should work at a record store, but like I don't know, selling records is it doesn't have the same draw as it did.
Well, I always wanted to work at a record store or a bookstore, and I guess I could still have that.
I mean, bookstores are the same thing. Like who's buying books?
Nobody, but I could just work there and be like, oh, look, I work at a bookstore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so during this time period is when he recorded House Arrest, Loverboy, and Worn Copy. So.
Yep. This is the kind of like I guess we can call it his second phase of his early years.
Yeah.
All right. So House Arrest is also remastered pretty recently, and to me, it actually made a big deal. When I first listened to House Arrest, I listened to the unremastered version, and I kind of had it roughly around on the same level as Scare Famous. But after listening to the remastered version, having the drums and the bass kick in, and like the vocals are actually also a little bit more stabilized. I thought this album was pretty great all throughout. It's fun the way that you mentioning it.
Well, the very first song in the album kicks off. Hardcore pops are fun. Hardcore pop is fun. What is it?
It's a really fun song actually.
I love that song. That's like one of the best Ariel Pink songs for me.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of the best songs in this early years of his, and
like the way this album kicks off to me, the first three songs, Hardcore Pops is fun, are fun, Interesting Results, and West Coast Calamities.
West Coast Calamities.
Those three songs back to back are like three of his best songs, I think.
Yeah, those three songs are those are some of the peaks I will say in this album. Not the only ones for sure, but it's a very great way to start the album. And a lot of these songs on this album are very inspired by 60s pop. Both, like the kind of like there's a few like Motown references from here and there. There is a lot of bubblegum as well.
Yeah.
There's the
West Coast Calamities to me kind of sounded like I think it has a little bit of that.
It has a little bit of a clip. It's like of like a little birds thing. It's like and Davy Jones saying like, "Oh, you're listening to the birds" or something like that. And then he kicks up the sound, and that song sounds a little bit like like the Laurel Canyon, like those like mid '60s hippie vibes. And so this album House Arrest draws from a lot of those '60s sounds, which I think is great. I mean, I love I love a lot of those sounds myself. But yeah, we talked about those three songs,
and it's like Ariel Pink's weird take on '60s pop.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's great overall.
And one of the best, I guess, skits on an album where he got a call from his dad in a Spanish accent. Ariel, I can't believe
you're so irresponsible, Ariel. What song was that?
House Arrest.
Oh, it was House Arrest. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I'm sorry, Dad. That is a pretty great thing thrown in there. I mean, a lot of his little things that he throws into this album are short enough that I don't really mind them, like that. I would say I think out of all the albums that I listened to, I think this one is the most consistent to me.
I would say the same. This is the most consistently good album throughout, and it does mostly have that like 60s kind of pop vibe, even though Getting High in the Morning has like a really like heavy riff in it.
It does, yeah.
Like,
yeah, it kind of sounds like
some of those metal influences.
I don't want to say Black Sabbath, but like kind of like the like,
and it's like
the doom, not doom metal, or
I don't
stoner metal maybe.
I don't know. It kind of just sounds like maybe like early metal, like Black Sabbath, really.
Yeah.
Like because it's like kind of heavy, fast riff, and it's like. I feel like it's on a weird time signature. I don't even know. Like,
I didn't catch on to that. No,
I don't like. I tried to count out what time signature it was, but it was just weird. I don't know, but it was real. It's really cool. Yeah,
that song. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorites, but I thought it was really interesting. I wouldn't take it off. Like, I wouldn't. I'm glad it was included because I think it definitely offers something a little different. A song that I didn't really know how to feel about it was the song Netherlands.
Yeah, that was like the 9-minute one.
That's the 9-minute one, and part of what I didn't like about it was the one is really long, kind of seems a little drawn out. But it sounds like a prog rock kind of song. There's like these. It has like this, but not like the good prog rock. It sounds like there's this prog rock sound of like the organs that they play or like the synthesizers that they play, and like you talked about this to me before, but you think that 80 synths are cheesy, but I think that like whatever they were
Yeah.
using in prog rock, that to me sounds cheesy. I don't know. I've never been able to get into those sounds, and he throws one of those synthesizers or organ sounds in that song, and I don't know. It's kind of a turn off for me, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad song in itself. It's just kind of just long.
Yeah.
Um, I think that maybe the song that actually did kind of like not like that much was Oceans of Weep.
Again, that's a song I like, and I don't know, it reminded me a lot. Do you know the Velvet Underground song, The Ocean?
Yeah, that's my least favorite song on that album. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on that's on
I love that song. It was on the VU album, the one that's like wasn't really officially released or whatever.
yeah. I don't know. It's like you're drowning in an ocean of sound. Like
I like it.
I can see the appeal of it. So once again, I'm not like saying it's a bad song. I just
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Yeah, Oceans of Weep gave me that vibe, and like I feel like he might have been drawing directly from that song, because it sounds similar to me.
Yeah, possibly.
But like, and I like, but it just because also I'm looking at that song through the lens of like the album, and I feel like it's a good like switch up, like vibe switch.
Yeah.
In the album.
Yeah. I was just gonna mention some of the other songs that I like, just real quick. There's a two-woman, Alisa, and
I love that song. It's
and
great.
Helen. I thought was kind of good.
Every
People-
night I die at Miyagi's. I love.
Every Night I Die Miyagi's is great.
Yeah.
I think that one was one of the standouts for me.
I didn't realize it before. Almost
eating
every
Dirty Vagina. That song really, I think, is like the first time that I hear him really embrace like that, like weird,
that crazy,
side,
stupid, weird shit.
kind of somewhat creepy kind of side of him. But like,
Yeah. But I'm just realizing this now.
What?
Almost every song on this album is great.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I
really-
think this album is consistent. I like this album. I would pop this in like just
Yeah.
on the regular. Like I don't know, it definitely holds up.
And also, I wasn't bothered by like the lo-fi quality of it.
No, actually, I mean when you listen to the remastered version, it actually doesn't sound that lo-fi.
Yeah.
It actually sounds pretty good, especially compared to his other releases.
Like he's really like his game on all fronts, like recording wise, songwriting wise, performance, like everything is just top notch right here.
Yeah, this is a high point for sure. All right, next album kind of made at the same time. This next album was made at the same time as House Arrest. It's called Loverboy, and Loverboy. I'm not sure what it was, but I don't know if they never remastered it when they released it, but it sounds more lo-fi than the House Arrest.
It does,
songs.
yeah. I'm not sure why.
Like
Because
it sounds like he was going back to like the sound
Weren't
of Scare
Hou-
Famous.
wasn't House Arrest and Loverboy released as like a double album?
Yeah, it was originally he released it as a double album. So I don't know, maybe I don't know if the version that we were listening to didn't have the same remastering process to it. Because Loverboy, even though he released it quote unquote as a double album with House Arrest, when it was released officially by Paw Tracks by Animal Collective, they only released House Arrest. They didn't release the Loverboy side of it. So Loverboy didn't have the same kind of interest that people didn't know about it quite as much as House Arrest.
But
yeah.
yeah, I feel like to me, Loverboy's kind of a step back.
Yeah,
The recording wasn't as good, and
I
the
think
songs weren't as good.
I think he took some of. I think since he recorded these two albums at the same time, I think his better output was tossed into House Arrest, while Loverboy kind of like took
Yeah.
the other stuff. But something I did like about Loverboy is that he once again expanding his palette. Every single album, I feel like he like definitely does something. He does step back a little bit in terms of like he goes back to some of the glam that he had in earlier, back in Scare Famous, but he also adds a lot more synths to this album, and that's something that I wrote it down over here. That's something that actually doesn't work for this album. is that this album, at least the way that we have it available, is too lo-fi, and it especially doesn't serve the sound very well because there's a lot more intricate production in this album. It relies a lot more on like lower register stuff, like his vocals are deeper. He has a lot more bass, and it's just a moodier sound overall. And when it goes through this like lo-fi treatment, especially when it gets like burned and copied several times, you lose a lot of that, and all the muddling that goes on with it really, I don't know, a lot of the quality of the music gets lost.
Yeah.
But especially like it's especially bad because of the type of music that is played in this album. But that being said, though, like I didn't think most of the songs were bad.
I don't think any of the songs were like flat out terrible or super bad, but they just weren't as standout as like made songs on House Arrest. There's a couple songs that I thought were really great. I don't I don't need enemies.
I don't need enemies. That's
I love
also
that
like
song.
I also thought that was the best song on this album.
Yeah, that was like the most catchy. It kind of sounds like it could have been on House Arrest.
Right. Yeah. It definitely does sound like that. Yeah. And I also like Hobbies Galore.
That's I like that song.
Hobbies Galore.
I like the Doggone She Gone.
That one was kind of fun. I didn't think it was a standout, but I thought it
was fun. I liked it.
It was fun. Yeah, I'm not gonna take that away from it. But it's I think that's one of those songs that sounds like a radio bit to me. Mm-hmm. Like he starts bringing in these sounds of like commercial music. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like like cars for cars for kids, cars for tots. You know that commercial?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like, I guess, not like a parody, but like maybe like an homage to that kind of sound, or like
it's very tongue in cheek. It's very
tongue in cheek. That's the word.
But you can tell he definitely enjoys the sound, but he knows it's not like a serious source of inspiration. But he's pretty good at like balancing that out. Yeah, I mean, there's a few other songs that I thought were good. Older Than Her Years, even though like sounds a little lo-fi, I thought it was fun. If anything, maybe a little bit too repetitious. Older than her years.
Yeah.
Younger than my years. And kind of
you love a good song about pedophilia. I've noticed, like. If the song's about like dating a girl that's way too young, you're just like, my favorite song on the album.
I just enjoy the fact that he is not. It's just the balls.
He's not restricted by the law. He'll just go if he likes a girl. Look, mentally, she's older than her years.
Look, we don't know how old this girl was, so but we know that she was older than her years.
I don't know if that holds up in a court of law. But...
I don't think so either, no. But there were other songs I liked as well. Don't Talk to Strangers.
Yeah.
She's My Girl, and the title track Loverboy I thought was also pretty good. But yeah, I mean, all these songs I think could be more standout if I don't know if it's just the recording quality or like
it just this album as a whole just seems kind of like a step back, where it's not terrible. It's better than Underground. And I mean, you like the Doldrums a lot. To me, it's better than the Doldrums, but like it just seems like a step back from House Arrest. But House Arrest is so great. It's kind of like he kind of had to take a step back a little bit if he was going to continue, because this is also like a very similar sound. I think. I mean, he did add more synths and stuff, but like it is still a pretty similar sound to what House Arrest was.
So I mean, actually, one song I thought was really interesting, even though it's not like one of my favorites. It was Phoebus Palast.
I'm super conflicted on that song because
it starts out. It's a very long song, first of all, right? It's actually not that long, but it's 7 minutes long.
7 minutes is long.
Is it the longest track on here?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, just by a little bit, it is the longest track on here. It's weird because it starts out as a progressive rock kind of like instrumental thing going on, and then it very quickly kind of turns into a more like a dark wave / EBM sound, like 9 Inch Nails kind of like. Well, maybe not quite as heavy as 9 Inch Nails, but like it sounds a lot more 80s than a lot of his other stuff.
Yeah, and I think that song has good ideas and it's interesting, but I think it's just way too long and it doesn't justify its length.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting listen, but it's not one that I would like pull up on the regular. But that's a song that I hated. Actually, it was like my least favorite track when I listened to it around the first time. But then the second time around, I don't know. It started clicking like what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
It's still not like one of my favorites, but I thought it was an interesting addition to this album. You got anything else to say about Loverboy?
No, that sums it up.
All right, cool. After Loverboy, he actually put together a group called Holy Shit, and he released an EP with that one. That was technically House Graffiti #7, but Holy Shit is kind of for most people considered like a separate thing, and they released like an album under that name and everything. So we didn't spend time on that EP. Instead, we just went straight to House Hunter Graffiti #8, which is Worn Copy. And Lucy, I'll let you introduce Worn Copy, since you seem to have strong opinions on this one.
Well, I have a theory about, I guess, maybe the concept of the album, what I was gathering from the album,
Okay.
and it might be wrong. So, Worn Copy, to me, kind of seems like, from beginning of the album to end, kind of like a journey through genres chronologically.
Okay.
Where at the beginning, it kind of has 60s sounds, kind of like 60s garage rock type sounds, with Immune to Emotion and, like, Jules Lost His Jewels, 60s and, like, early 70s kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then it kind of just keeps going through genres until, like, to me, Artifact kind of sounds like an art rock song, like early 70s to mid 70s. Bloody is a short song, but if you listen to it, in the background of the song is kind of like faux like early metal stuff like Black Sabbath, or like kind of sounds like Led Zeppelin kind
Yeah,
of shit.
it is very, yeah, a lot of noise on that album, on that song.
But also in the foreground of the song is him just screaming like stupid like satanic quote unquote things like I'm gonna eat your children or something, or worship Satan, and then like there's a point where he's
Kill your
even saying
parents.
like, yeah, kill your parents, and there's a point where he even says like this is a subliminal message. Like he's clearly joking about like the time where people were like, oh, if you play Stairway to Heaven backwards there's a satanic message, and like, you know, like, and a lot of songs in the 70s were super inspired by the occult and like, you know, Black Sabbath stuff, and also Led Zeppelin, like, were they said themselves that they were, you know, really into the occult in the time. David Bowie was super into the occult, so I think that was kind of like a spoof on that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's also around early mid 70s. So then you get to Credit, disco song, so just going through other 70s genres. Life in LA, that's an interesting song. Like, what kind of genre do you think? It kind of sounds disco-ish to me.
Life in
But
LA. I can't remember right now, but it does sound like late '70s. I don't know if yacht rocky is the way to say it, but it's, yeah. I mean, I know where you're trying
it's
to
firmly in
go
the
for.
70s,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd say. The drummer, I'm more, my theory is more stronger in the first half.
Okay.
The drummer, I'm not sure what that song kind of sounds like. It may be because it's not one of my favorite songs on the album. I don't really like it that much. So let's just skip to the ones I'm more certain about. Creep Show is kind of like a spoof on those, like, what's the word? Novelty songs, I think, at least.
Okay.
You know, like novelty Halloween songs or whatever, like, that were kind of popular, like, in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Like, people would have, like, what's the Monster Mash, shit like that.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Uh-huh.
Then the songs kind of start taking like an 80s direction, where I think the strongest one is Somewhere in Europe. Sound has a super strong 80s vibe to me, like kind of new wave. And from there I'm lost. But the first 2/3 of the album I think have a strong like chronological genre theme, where it's going from the 60s through the 70s to the 80s.
Okay, I see. I kind of see where you're going for there. I guess I would have to listen back through to the album to kind of argue whether or not that's the case.
And I'm not the most knowledgeable about like every genre ever, so
Right.
he might be like doing a take on like some super obscure genre from the 70s that I don't know about, or some obscure genre from the 80s that I don't know about.
Yeah, but I mean, something that I can definitely agree with is that this album has like the most full collection of influences, and
Yeah, the most
he,
diverse.
yeah, he has an entire palette of sounds over here in this album, and yeah, maybe you are onto something in terms of like how it's arranged, but the something I noticed about this album in particular is that it is a lot more funky.
Mm-hmm.
It's very bass heavy. There has like it really focused more on grooves and less on melodies, which to me is a little bit of a downside personally, because it to me it reminds me of like late '70s Queen. You know, like when they did like Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
Like I think Creepshow kind of like has a little bit of that
I
vibe.
mean, I can see what you're saying, but I wouldn't say that. But this album is so varied. It's not like that's the majority of the songs on it.
I mean, it's not the majority of the songs, but it's very heavy. There's a very heavy emphasis on that. It's definitely not. It's not as focused on the glam rock
Yeah.
as Scare Fame is. It's not as focused on dream pop as the Doldrums. It's not as focused on 60s pop really as much as House Arrest is.
Yeah, I think this is the least pop oriented one.
Yeah,
Where it's like he's more on like to rock and like other genres that aren't like as focused on the melody as much
Yeah.
as like maybe the riffs or like the grooves and
yeah. If anything,
yeah.
this album sounds more like yeah, like one of those like classic rock albums. Like it has a rock feel to it, in that instead of like a pop feel to it, it has a more rock feel to it. And not just because it has a lot of guitars throughout, and it has those heavy grooves, but just the way that the songs are structured, they don't emphasize the hooks or the chorus quite as much as the other albums do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
But I think this like so I'll agree with what you're saying, but I think that had strong grooves on it. I think these songs were
no, I mean,
the majority of the songs were
the
strong.
grooves
I
are
liked
really
a lot.
like the thing about this, and I think that's also a reason why like I mean the remasters are also like a big deal for this one because of that. It helps
Yeah,
bring
if you
out that
couldn't,
bass.
I only listened to the remastered versions, so like I don't really know what this sounded like not remastered, but like if what you're saying is true, like the bass and the drums are stripped out basically
Yeah.
like so low that you couldn't really hear it.
Right.
These songs would suffer like a lot from that.
Yeah, there's yeah, and like I think it's funny that you went through all of these songs. I mean, to me, the songs that I like the most are probably the songs that resemble more of his earlier stuff. Like I mean, like Immune to Emotion, Jules Lost His Jewels.
I
Um,
love Jules Lost His Jewels. That's
and
like super fun. Like
yeah, that one's fun. I mean, Immune to Emotion is pretty groovy too.
yeah, I
You
love
know?
Immune to Emotion too.
And then I like Credit and Life in L.A. But all of these are like kind of like in this at the start of the album.
Yeah, I'd say I think the first half of the album is better than the second half, even though there are highlights on the second half. But the first half is a lot stronger. I'd say like I really like all the songs in the first half, and specifically "Life in L.A." I think is one of his stronger songs. At least what's the word? Like structurally at least. Like it
Yeah.
seems like a fully developed song where because it's kind of a longer song. It's almost is it almost 7 minutes?
It's almost 7 minutes. Yeah.
So it's like it's one of his longer songs, but it's the only one of his longer songs that I think actually merits its time. Like it actually fully develops into a song that needs to be that. Like,
I mean,
and-
it's an ode to the only city that he's really lived in.
Yeah.
So, like it's, yeah. I mean, to him personally, you could tell that it was a big deal to him.
And I love that. I love the groove on the song. There's a saxophone in it that like such a great sax part in the song. I love it. I think that's like one of his best songs.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like. I mean, to me, it actually initially didn't hit me very hard, but upon a couple more listens, it did grow on me. But I still think it's like maybe like one of his best songs on this album. I would say. Um, there. I think to me, Warren Copy though, what I think this is more of a personal opinion, but like there were less songs that like stuck out as highly as some of the other albums, and there were actually a good amount of songs that I didn't really like that much. You were talking about Bloody Begonias. That one I actually didn't like very much.
I don't think it's a good song, but it's short enough to me that it's like, it's a little interlude and I get what he's doing with it. So
Yeah,
I'll give it a pass. Like, and it's not like I skip it when I listen to it. Like, I can listen to it, but it's not like a good song.
yeah, and then I'm not a huge fan of the Closer Jagged Carnival tours.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not good.
I thought it could. I don't know.
Even though Four-Leaf Foibles / Gold, I think that's a really good one too. And that's like one of its longer songs too. But like the first half of the song isn't good, but then when it gets to
No.
like the gold part, that's like I really like
I
that.
like the gold part. I'll agree with that. So it's an 8 minute song, and the first 3 minutes are like this Foily Foibles part, which is just him like fucking around with like shit. I don't know. And
His review
called-
of Worn Copy. It's just him fucking around with shit, I guess.
it's called Foily Foibles. I mean, it's definitely not like anything to be taken that seriously. And that part of the song I don't like, but I can't dismiss the entire thing because I do like the gold part of it.
Yeah.
And then I think a similar thing happened with Trepanated Earth, the opener to the album.
Yeah.
One is way too long. It's 11 minutes long, but
There's a lot of long songs in this album.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize.
This is one of his longer albums, but
Yeah.
there's a lot. There's like good parts to Trepanated Earth, but there's
Yeah.
just so much other stuff to like have to listen to.
Yeah, that's the thing with these. Like, I think this album has, of his long songs, these are his better ones. Just because the parts that are strong in them are very strong. I think like they're like Trepanated Earth. Like there's a good song in there. It's just surrounded by like 5 minutes of a bad song.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's the best way to sell that, but yeah. All right. So I don't know. You got anything else to say about Worn Copy?
No, I mean I like it. I like it a lot. I think I like it more than you do.
Yeah.
Because I think because to me it kind of makes a statement as a full album. Like if you listen to it from front to back, and like at least I don't know if my theory about like that chronological order of genres thing was like what he intended, but that's what I get from the album at least. And like if I listen to it from front to back, it has like that theme running through it, and it kind of ties the album together. And the album has a lot of great songs on it to me. And I think like there's not a lot of songs on this album that I don't like. So it's one of his stronger albums to me.
Okay. So I guess that pretty much wraps up our individual album look throughs.
So
Do you want to go straight ahead to? Actually, something that I actually mentioned, I guess, around now. I guess I'll repeat it later. Is we've been including playlists with each one of our podcasts, so you guys can listen to.
yeah, we got to remember to include that because
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever said it in any of the podcasts.
No, I think we have before, but if you guys check out like especially on like the YouTube links on the YouTube playlist, I've been like including the playlist on there, and you can check out the songs because we can't play the songs to you guys while we're talking.
Yeah, so
but you guys can go along and listen to what we thought were some of the best songs.
yeah, we basically have been picking 4 songs from each album that we think are the highlights of the album that
Right.
will kind of give you like a primer to that album, to what it sounds like, and then
And
so
with
it gets
this
you a
one, I
starter
think it's
pack.
actually really useful because I can imagine most of you guys, if you're not already familiar with Ariel Pink, you might not want to go through the whole task of listening through and to find out what you like
Yeah.
or whatnot. Like so, like I don't know. Like to me, like before this week, I hadn't listened to a lot of his earlier stuff, and like if I had a playlist like this one, I think I would have.
Yeah.
I would have really appreciated that.
So
Honestly.
like yeah, because before we started this, doing the research for this episode, David had already like been a fan of Ariel Pink, at least the studio stuff from like 2010 on.
Yeah.
And I hadn't listened to any Ariel Pink. Like I've heard of him. And I've heard like I think I heard Pom Pom once, but like other than that, I really hadn't listened to any of them.
Yeah, and
So-
I thought that was a great setup because, I'm coming from somebody who's already a fan and like looking backwards, so I feel like I might have like a little bit of
A different perspective.
perspective of it. Yeah, well, you're just like you're blank slate essentially coming into this.
And I was actually surprised because going in, like, all I saw was that, like, oh, from 1996 to 2003, he made a shit ton of home recordings. And so I was expecting just a bunch of shit. I didn't think any of it was going to be good. I really didn't. Like,
I thought it was gonna be consistently worse than what it actually is.
like, these are, like, for the most part, these are really good albums. A lot of
Yeah.
them. Like, these sound like more put together than somebody who was just making them at home for himself. Like, they sound like professionally made albums, but just, like, recorded badly.
No, he's a good songwriter. He makes good songs.
But, like, that's just surprising to me that, like, it sounds like he put so much effort into some of these albums for nothing, for nobody. Like,
Yeah.
just for himself. Like,
I mean, I guess initially for nobody, but yeah. I mean, he
But, like,
didn't
just
really
for
have an
him-
audience in mind. Yeah.
but just for, like, himself and his friends, like, these songs are, like, really well crafted, and a lot of, like, some of them have, like, a lot of interesting instrumentation, and a lot of, like, they have saxophones and shit in them, and, like, synthesizers, like, he's making all this shit, and, like, well, I mean, I guess if he had the internet at the time, if he was making this in, like, the 2010s, he'd be on Bandcamp and SoundCloud
Right.
and shit, but, like,
But at the time, he not only it was just his personal collection of music, and who knows if if Animal Collective didn't have that record label, I don't know if maybe somebody else would have picked him up, but like he really wasn't seeking to get picked up like that. I don't know. I'm just glad that we have it, even though some of it is a little bit more difficult to get through than other stuff. It's a treasure trove that you had to dig through, I would say.
yeah. Do you want to rank his albums?
Yeah, let's go through the ranking. Should I do it first this time, or should I?
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So before if we didn't have the remastered versions of these albums, my top album would have been The Doldrums.
Really?
Yeah, I really like that album.
You're
but
insane. I don't like every time we do this, you have a pick that is so crazy to me. It's like, how are you like?
This
you
is
have,
it's not even that crazy of a pick.
How is adult? Okay, just
Okay.
no. Say the rest of your point. Say the rest of your point.
I mean, I've already talked about the Doldrums, and the Doldrums, I think one of the benefits it has over some of the other albums is that it has a consistent sound throughout. So it seems like an exploration of a particular sound, and you kind of get into that mood. And plus, it's a mood that I really like. I really like the dream pop mood, and especially with the versions that were not remastered. Like I said, like a lot of those higher, maybe more ghostly kind of sounds come out. It's not an album that depends very heavily on the bass or drums at all. So I think when the lo-fi quality actually worked well with it. Even though I do think that it is better with the remaster at the end of the day. Without the remaster, I think it still holds up. And I think that's why it was probably, I think it was when it was released originally, the most popular of the three releases. But that's if it wasn't remastered. Now that we do have the remaster, the more original versions of the songs, the versions that Ariel Pink was actually hearing in his headphones when he was mixing. The one that I think really deserves the title is House Arrest. I think that one is the top pick at the end of the day. But yeah, I just have to make that point. So it's still House Arrest number one, and then the Doldrums, kind of falls back a little bit to number two. But they're pretty close in my mind. House Arrest and the Doldrums. Definitely strong recommendations from me. From then on, I kind of have the next three albums are kind of roughly on more equal footing. So it's like a second tier. But if I had to pick a second one, it's a little difficult. But the one that I would pick would actually be probably Worn Copy. Worn Copy is one that is still growing on me. It still has a little bit of room to grow. And the fact that it's already on equal footing in my mind with both Scare Famous and Loverboy kind of says that if maybe with another listen or two, I think Worn Copy would be more clearly number three in my mind. But I mean, to me, it makes sense why those three were the ones that were released by Animal Collective originally. Then after that, gonna have to go with Loverboy. Even though I think Scary Famous had a lot of like really exciting stuff at the time, just taking it for what it is, I think Loverboy probably has more songs that I enjoy listening to. But it's almost a tie, I would say, between Loverboy and the Scare Famous, at least the compilation form that we have of it. I'm really interested. I'm really curious to wait for actually if we ever get or when we get the remastered version of Scare Famous and or Loverboy or whatever. I don't know if we ever get like higher quality versions of these two albums. It's possible that Scare Famous would be on top, but and then at the very end, the last one will be Underground. That album.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about
Okay,
that
your list isn't that. Your list doesn't offend me that much.
It's not as offensive, Noah. I think today we knew that we weren't gonna disagree all too much. But
Yeah,
all right,
'cause
let's hear yours out.
to me, House Arrest is like a clear number one album to me. It's
Okay, we agree here.
his best songs are on there, and almost every song on there is great. But to me, the second place is Worn Copy.
I saw that coming. Yeah.
I really love a lot of the songs on there, and it has like, a clear theme to me, and like it works well to me. It's like an entire album. After that,
You're really into this whole theme idea.
I like when I listen to albums. I was
was practically listening to these albums on random, if anything.
Yeah, that's I saw like you'll make your own playlist out of an album and put them in a different order. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like
Well,
you have to listen to it in the order that it was intended. You can't
Some albums I really care about the order, but I don't know. If pretty early on, it was kind of clear to me that Ariel Pink, that was not such a big deal.
Well, yeah, I felt that same way too. And then I listened to Worn Copy, and I'm like, oh shit, he's doing something here. Like he's actually doing something with this album. And like, look, let me get this straight. Like, you don't need like an album for me. Like, an album doesn't have to have, like, a bigger theme in order to be a good album. House Arrest doesn't have a bigger theme. The songs on there are just all great. So that's why it's number one to me.
Yeah.
But if an album does have, like, a clear theme that it's doing and, like, it works it well, that pushes it up a little bit for me, at least. It makes the experience a richer listening experience.
It's why you like Animals, yeah.
We're going to do this Pink Floyd episode, I swear to God. But, so yeah, number two would be Worn Copy for me. And then, again, I agree with you that, like, the other albums after that are kind of, like, on a second tier. Like, those two for me are, like, clear, like a cut above of all these other albums.
So you also have, like, a first tier and a second tier.
Yeah, where, like...
We just don't have the same...
Yeah, where all the other albums are kind of, like... Except for Underground is a clear last place.
Yeah.
All the other albums are of a similar quality. But for me, I think... I like Scared Famous a lot. Like, even though there's glaring problems with it and, like, the quality is bad, I like a lot of the songs on there. And then I think it would be Loverboy, then The Doldrums, then Underground.
Wow. Wow. I can't believe you put the Doldrums.
I don't like the Doldrums.
Basically last.
I don't like it.
No.
It's not even. It doesn't have any of the Ariel. It doesn't have any of the charm of Ariel Pink in it.
One thing that I was gonna tell you is that like if you at least going into the second episode, you're not gonna miss the Doldrums very much because he doesn't really like go back to that sound very much. And maybe every now and then you'll hear it, but like
I could deal with the Doldrum sound if it was not the entire album. Like that's the thing. Like I like some of the songs on there and I like the sound. It's just that for the entire album, I'm like I can't deal with this.
Now to me it's like I don't know. It's like a special. To me it's like a special album. It's different. It has its own quality to it. And
it's like the 808s and Heartbreak of the Ariel Pink discography.
I guess in a way, yeah. I don't know. To me, it just stands out as like this is, you're not gonna get all this dialogue about like eating dirty vagina on this album.
He's a lot like Kanye West, actually.
We talked about this before. That they both feed on the hate. People call out Ariel Pink for all this stupid shit that he says. He called Grimes retarded at one point. and that was a big sticking point. But
Yeah.
if anything, he's just like, I don't know,
He's just an asshole. He doesn't give a shit. He's an
He's
asshole.
never gonna apologize for anything. If anything, he's just gonna keep feeding off of it.
He might. Oh my god, we need the Kanye Ariel Pink collaboration album.
You think they'll be able to get together?
Oh my god,
Something that we
the
are
clash
kinda
of
hoping
two
for.
egos.
We're hoping for that JPEG Mafia and Ariel Pink.
Oh yeah, that
collaboration.
would be good. But I
Yeah.
mean, that has to happen.
That
I mean,
has to
they
happen.
were in the studio together. But
Yeah.
but also another thing that's an important thing that I think we need to touch on before we close this episode is that his sister was in a car crash, I think in 2003.
Yeah.
And
When
like
he was
a,
finishing one copy.
yeah, a very serious car crash where she had permanent brain damage, and that was like a turning point for him where he really didn't feel inspired to write music after that, and he kind of just stopped. Where from 1996 to 2003, he was on like a tear of just constant creativity and constant
Just flushing them out one by
yeah.
one.
Where I guess that I mean it's a traumatic experience, so I can
Yeah.
see why he would lose a lot of his creative energy.
Yeah, probably his mindset just completely shifted after that. Maybe he actually became responsible and
Yeah, I don't know.
paid for his car
Maybe
insurance or whatever the hell.
his dad wasn't ashamed.
His
of
dad
him.
wasn't yelling at him
Maybe
anymore.
he started doing better at the record store and maybe became a manager.
Ariel, you're so responsible now.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I'm never gonna convince you that the Doldrums is a great album.
No, you're
but,
not.
But I still think the Doldrums is, to me, the Doldrums and House Arrest are the ones to listen to. For you, clearly, Worn Copy and
One
House
copy
Arrest.
of House Arrest. If you I
So,
think both of us
I
clearly.
mean, both of us agree that House Arrest is definitely.
If you're gonna
the
listen
thing
to one album from this period, listen to House
Listen to
Arrest.
House Arrest,
That's
yeah.
the one that you
Yeah.
should listen to.
Yeah, but if you want to listen to two more albums, then
Warren Copy is the next one. Don't listen
And-
to anything
and
that
then-
he
and the
said. No,
Doldrums.
no. He's wrong. I'm gonna cut his part out of it. But
And but yeah, that would be the order that I mean. I think it was smart to release those albums
Yeah.
first, but yeah, then don't check out Underground unless you're like really a
if you're a
hardcore fan.
huge Ariel Pink fan, yeah, check it out.
yeah.
But thanks for listening. This is again the first part of our 2-part Ariel Pink series. The next episode we're going to cover his studio work.
Yep.
From 2010 to the present.
And don't forget we have both a Twitter. We have an
What,
Instagram. We've been posting some really nice pictures on the Instagram.
We've been taking pictures. We're really we're getting into this shit. We're becoming good media personalities.
Yeah, we're getting this whole social media.
Follow us on Twitter at BloodOnTheMic1. Follow us on Instagram at BloodOnTheMic. Follow me on Twitter at Torna Lewis.
Yeah, be sure to follow us if you would like to watch it on YouTube. Our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You can follow us there.
YouTube channel, Blood on the Mic. We want to get some. Right now, it's just the podcast with a still image, but we do want. I feel like we're gonna have some actual video coming in soon.
Yeah, we're definitely in the works for that. And don't forget to check out the playlist as well. We actually put a little bit of effort into the playlist, and they're good playlists. They're good playlists.
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Stick around for part 2.
Bye.